Welcome to the NFT Podcast, Anastasia, and I'm very glad to meet you. And how are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing great today. How are you?
Great, I'm doing great too. And please tell me more about your story in NFTs and space because I really was very passionate when I found your article. So it seems like that you are building applications for space industry with NFTs, and that's something very futuristic for me.
Yeah, thanks. So I got into the Bitcoin space back in 2016, and obviously, when you get into Bitcoin, the whole kind of blockchain space opens up for you. And I've really enjoyed seeing blockchain technology adopted in other industries, space specifically, because as a little girl, I love space. Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, is like one of my only heroes. My grandfather used to take me out and like teach me all the star constellations when I was little. So I think every kid in the USSR, which is where I was born, wanted to be an astronaut. It was like the coolest thing ever. So I got a chance to combine my love of like blockchain tech and space a bunch of years ago. Fast forward to today, I am the VP of marketing for Lunargistics Corp, and we are trying to working on simplifying space launches. So what that means is we want to use NFT technology, blockchain technology to streamline the process of launch companies getting from just startup phase to actually launching something into space, like satellites, eventually space shuttles, etc. So any kind of object that people want to send out there, we're here to help them.
Super cool. How can NFTs help this process?
So one of the cool things about NFTs is that the documentation of information there is tamper-proof, right? And you can use NFTs to tokenize different types of information on the blockchain. So for us to simplify the process, it takes a couple of years to actually launch something. And if you put that information to an NFT, it's a lot easier to move it around. For example, if you're using it for documents, for like you know, talking about all of your safety, information, experimentation, what the satellite is like. You can then take that NFT and you can go and crowdfund with it for that space launch. So crowdfunding and compliance are kind of the two branches that we're looking at the most. And then helping to also connect rideshare companies, the launch provider, and then the payload provider together so that they can easily move those payloads and actually launch them with rockets.
Oh, super cool. So, like for funding purposes, that's one of the main reasons that you think that can help NFTs in the space. Okay, and
Mm-hmm.
I also like so other applications on the article you wrote that you talked about like greater control over space assets. That's something that NFTs can enable. Can you tell me more about this?
So NFTs, like once that information is in there and compacted into the NFT, it can enhance tracking, processing, verifying, and basically securing all types of space behavior. So imagine if a satellite was also an NFT and all that information of where it was in space was stored in that NFT, then on the ground we would be able to track it a lot more easily than with the technology that we have now, right? Space debris is a really big problem at the moment because there's over 3,000 satellites in space, and there's only so much of it for them to not collide. So this is something that the entire space industry is working on, and it could be a really good use case for tokenization, as I wrote in that article. So it's something that's currently lacking in capability, but if we combine all of these new technologies together, we might come up with something that actually solves the problem.
Okay, because like I'm thinking about that, how can I tokenize an object? Because if I want to tokenize like my artworks, I just go to Rarible, OpenSea, and I can mint these JPEGs as NFTs. But if I want to tokenize as space assets, how are you going to do this?
So right now there's no vehicle to do that, and so that's what we're building. That's what we're working on. Our
Okay.
developers are creating a platform that is going to be able to, an accredited investor or a satellite launch provider would be able to sign up to that platform, go on there, put in all of the pertinent information, and then transact with those types of satellites. Again, we're like focusing on just one area, but tokenization in space, a lot of companies can get into it and can work on all of these other different applications of it. Another like really cool use case would be crowdfunding satellites, for example, and that would that would give us faster transactions and greater transaction speeds from the ground station to the satellite, right? And faster transactions between companies who want to maybe sell their satellites and investors who want to buy them. So again, many different use cases of how to connect the technology and the industry together.
Amazing. And so I'm imagining that like these tokens that we are going to create, these NFTs, will be a one of the physical object, or will be like that's the way you're going to create them. Like it will be just a singular copy for every physical objects that is will be launched in space.
You could do it that way. You could also do it in a way where you tokenize shares of a satellite, right? Instead of the whole satellite as an object, you can just kind of count out the shares. And then that also still streamlines the process, but people can crowdfund them so they can have and own a share of a satellite through one of those NFT tokens, right? Not specifically like arts, but specifically to, specifically like that ownership part, right? Because all NFTs do is it's an authentication of ownership, right? Digitally. And so if somebody has that validation, can validate that they own that part of the satellite, then it's theirs. And
Yeah.
then the possibilities after that are pretty limitless. Were going if you were going to use those shares, and then the satellites would be doing something like being part of a constellation, like what some of the big space companies are doing, creating satellite internet. You'd be able to, if somebody was using those satellites that you had an ownership of, you might be able to get a kickback for it, right? That would be a security, but it's something that can absolutely be done technologically.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And in terms of also like of investing, like for people, maybe for retail investors, this can be an opportunity to invest in space, because maybe now you can invest in space by buying some stocks of Virgin Galactic. I don't know what you want, but like of course the space industry is less accessible to retail industry, how is for a more institutional investors and bigger investors. So you're saying that by fractionalizing some assets and some NFTs, you open this entire industry to a new amount of investors, of smaller investors, and that's one of the power of fractionalizing in NFTs, because multiple people can invest in the same assets in the same without, because maybe no one can afford the entire price of it, but fractionalizing it, this is what you can enable.
Yeah, there's definitely lots of opportunities, and that's the cool part about it, because we call it the new space economy, and you might have even heard that phrase rolling around the space industry is new space, as opposed to like the old legacy space economy that started out with only governments being able to launch stuff. Now there's more and more like small startups like us, and everything from launch providers to satellite manufacturers, etc. They're all starting to be able to enter the industry now. So small private companies are able to participate in this new space race. And of course, with that small business coming in, eventually, yeah, retail investors and just in general, like the average person would be able to participate in this. People are talking about going back to the moon and then going to Mars and beyond that. So in the next 50 to 100 years, we're going to see those opportunities increase. I'm excited about it.
I'm very excited about it, because you mentioned something that for me is new, like new space economy. So it means that like we are in a new era of space. Like, and do you think that it has been unlocked by the fact that one day a man like Elon Musk like decided that now companies that works for space can be also private. So do you think that the privatization of that industry unlock this new era of new space economy? And like, which are the other main characteristic of this new space economy? Because one, of course, is tokenization, but are there other projects in the space from small businesses and the startups that really excites you?
I mean, space tourism, of course. That's one of the things that investors are actually looking at the most. Obviously, like resource, getting resources from asteroids. That's another one. There's, there's really, there's really like it's a really emerging like market, right? It's super super early right now, and so I think there is a ton of possibilities that even like we haven't thought of just yet, right? Satellite internet, mining asteroids, space tourism, satellites just going out there and like storing or transferring other information, crowdfunding, all of that stuff is just open, and the more people are able to enter like the new space industry, the more possibilities we have, right? Is innovation is created from inspiration.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like space tourism is something that really excites me about Virgin Galactic, and I hope they're going to launch soon. They said that they're going to launch in 2021. They're going to create a huge event around it, so we will see. And okay, like coming back to in general to NFTs and to what you do, like there is something that some other apps that I saw that you are building, like for example something that can increase security and compliance. I've got some more details to share about this.
well, security is just because NFTs and like blockchain technology in general, as long as it's decentralized, it eliminates the single point of access model for space communication. And so it's pretty tamper proof as long as the information that goes into the technology, the blockchain, is correct to begin with. So it's a little bit better than what we have with legacy systems right now. So overall, just in general, like NFT security is better than regular database security in some senses. Not to say that it's good for everything, because that was kind of a trend back in 2017 that you should put everything on the blockchain, but that's not true. Blockchains are really only there to validate authenticity or to validate really to timestamp information. So if you just keep that in mind, then you can use the technology for what it's better suited for instead of like dumping all of the data you possibly can on a blockchain on a satellite, right? That's not necessarily going to work in your favor.
All right. So you're basically saying that not all the informations should be on the blockchain. We still need some level of confidentiality and like privacy of some informations, especially when you talk about like space information.
Things like national security, right? Still, a lot of governments are involved in space and are going to be for quite a while. So, national security is a big point of you shouldn't store that information on the blockchain. But to know that the person who's sending to you is actually part of the organization that you're communicating with, right? And being able to validate that electronically, that's something that you would want, right? Not just some weird email address that could be spoofed, but actually verifiable signatures that tell you that yes, you're communicating with the right person. We're not, as far as like right now, we're not really touching satellites. We're more interested in the compliance part of it and the funding part of it. That's really where we want to, help the industry, and also with ride shares and being a payload matchmaker for different companies. But if other companies do something with satellites and tokenization, I just think that the use cases are cool. Like another use case out there is to create space patents, right? This is something that a company that I used to work with before did for the real estate industry, Ubiquity, like we've mentioned it before. So Ubiquity used blockchain technology to create software as a service to put like house titles and airplane titles on the blockchain, right? Because it's public information, and it's public information that needs to be valid and needs to be passed on from person to person when the ownership of those titles changes. So for space patents, right, that's also public information that anybody can look up. But if somebody were to want to sell that patent or move that patent to a new owner, then this is one of those times when an NFT or a blockchain would be a really great underlying technology for that kind of data. If you need, if you're looking to buy a house, right? Right now, the real estate systems are pretty outdated, I would say. And so if you're wanting to know if like a house has a tax lien on it, or if there was flooding in that area at some point during previous, ownerships, then that's stuff that you would want to know as a home buyer before you go in and buy that home and take on that title. And that information can be obscured. Those records could be lost. In some countries, right outside of the first world, that information might not even exist or be in a lockbox in some trailer with just a bunch of folders, right? And that's actually like a true story. So in those cases, if you digitize that information and you make sure that it's tamper-proof and immutable, then anytime a new owner comes around and wants to buy that object and wants the ownership title for it, or the space patent for it, they would be able to see that entire history there and know exactly what they're getting. Again, you know accounting for human error when that information is put in there. But if you're talking about a house, that's been around for a couple of decades, and that data is stored immutably, then for the most part, most of that information will be correct.
Yeah, of course. This helps to like decrease asymmetric informations between different parts of this, let's say, of this contract. And okay, so it seems like that all this entire process, like of having informations public on the blockchain and also tokenize some space assets, does it open a possibility to decrease cost in, you think?
For sure. And that's kind of what we're looking at with Lunargistics, is we want to cut down the time that it takes to launch and the cost that it takes to launch. Because the process of filling out and sending documents is extremely time consuming. You need a lot of manpower for that to, check and triple check and to transfer that information securely between different parties. So I think that in this case, NFTs can really cut down that cost.
Okay, of course.
Especially if you're talking about like using a platform, right? Like what we're building. If you're using a platform, all of a sudden, a lot of the things that you need to do to launch the space get automated. And if they're automated, they're just quicker and less costly. You don't need as much manpower for it.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Like the main users of the space are, of course, the astronauts. So do you think that there will be like also benefits for them, habilitating this entire NFTs ecosystem?
Yeah, I would say so. For like, I mean, we can take it a fun route, right? And talk about maybe like creating astronaut NFTs. This is actually happening in the sports industry right now, right? As collectibles, using NFTs as what we see them as, the shiny, beautiful art that you can get on Wearable or OpenSea, that that we're showing off right now in our the Alien Treehouse VR world that me and one of my friends built. So if you do astronaut NFTs and maybe make it into a game of some sort, like a trading card game, or maybe a learning game to teach kids, which astronauts went to the International Space Station when, etc. Like there's a lot of really cool possibilities to play around with that. And maybe the astronauts get, rewarded every time that their card is used in the game or something, or they get a part of a profit from gameplay. Like there's definitely some stuff to think about.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that like astronauts, they are the people that are like advancing our species. Like they deserve like everything from us because they are risking their life for putting their effort and their mind and entire career in trying to build and be part of the biggest revolution that we need in every field of science, because of course there are scientists, engineers, there are amazing pilots and a lot of other stuff together. So like it's fun for
Yeah.
me like also to think that the NFTs can be huge tool for connecting more life of an astronauts to the life of like people here on Earth. Because of course, who doesn't want to meet an astronaut? Who doesn't want to know more about the life of an astronaut? And because like NFTs not only are a way to invest in the careers of people, but also a way of sharing more what do you do. So they bring from the outer space amazing photos. They can be minted as NFTs. An economic reason, because of course those photos can be sold for some money, some Ethereum. Of course, some Ethereum won't change the entire budget of space. That's of course it's huge, because we talk about billions of dollars to create and launch everything that you want to do in space. But anyway, it seems like that NFTs in this case has got applications for science, because one of the biggest problems I think that we see in our world, that we've got a lot of technologies, we've got a lot of amazing people around the world that are building incredible technologies that can advance our humanity in terms of benefits, in terms of safety, in terms of like healthy. But the problem is that there aren't always so much money to invest in science. But if you open like the space industry, that is the science itself, to retail investor, those money that people invest in NFTs in this space, they can fund also maybe some specific researches that we see now on the ESS. Because of course ESS, it's a lab, it's a laboratory where there are hundreds of different science researches upon I'm going to tell you more maybe in the description. I can link something like this, because I don't know
Yeah.
all the applications that there are there. But that's for me a way very very far away from the arts application that we are seeing now. But it's a way for us people to use NFTs to fund science, and I think that's amazing for the entire humanity.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And our team, we have an awesome, brilliant chief scientist, Vishal Singh, who's from India, and he's worked with a bunch of teams to launch stuff into space. He designed the Maham rover that was just presented at European Resource Week, Space Resource Week, a couple of weeks ago, and he really wants to go out there to the moon and actually build stuff on there. And his Maham rover is all about understanding the moon's surface and then being able to use the material on the moon to build roads, buildings, hotels, fuel stations, etc., so that from the moon we can go out and explore other, you know, other planets and stuff. And then our chairman of the board, Logan Brian Galema, both of them are the founders of Lunargistics. His dad is actually one of those like space photographers that you were just talking about.
Wow.
So all of this is like really close to our hearts on our team. We're all excited and like pumped about all of the different possibilities, and we're just each of us bringing our unique skill set and our unique passion about combining blockchain and NFTs and space together, as so that we can help, and we want to be part of this, right? We're all entrepreneurs and we want to see humanity achieve things that, generations before us never thought possible.
Wow, absolutely. And like it seems like a clear path full of benefits. But let's jump on the other side. And which are the biggest challenges for you and your team for this startup that is building something that needs to be anyway in an ecosystem where there are huge companies, billion-dollar companies, there are governments. You need to find a lot of money for launch this project. So which are the biggest challenges for you now?
Well, definitely funding. Every startup needs. We want it to build out our platform and make it custom made for all of the clients, right, and customers that we'll have. And that's why we're going to Bitcoin 2021 in June to actually meet with potential investors and, see how much of the rest of our industry is excited about these kinds of projects. I've actually recently released another blog article about the most frustrating challenges for space entrepreneurs. So I definitely encourage everybody to check that out. But funding is a big one for a lot of companies. We did a poll on Twitter and on LinkedIn a couple of weeks ago, and definitely people are looking for funding. Right, that's one challenge. Another one is that we're actually specifically like Lunargistics is dealing with is regulatory ambiguity, right? So there's a couple of space acts, especially in the US, because our focus right now is on the United States, although, there's different regulations and different problems to solve in other countries too. Regulatory guidance is ambiguous a lot of the times. There's a couple of space acts that are out there, a couple of international treaties, and some minor regulations, but they're not, um, they don't really give new space entrepreneurs a lot of guidance on how and where they should proceed. So we want to tackle that. We want to make sure that all of the documentation that's out there that's needed is all ready to go for all of these different space companies. So it's easier for them to go to the specific government organizations that they need to get their licensing, to get their authorization, to get their payload reviews, and to make sure that they're not rejected, because that would, that would basically set back launch time by months, if not years in some cases. And then think one of the other ones is that our scientists always talks about is launch facility accessibility. If you're in this industry and you're trying to manufacture or innovate, create some kind of new technology for space, there's a lot of experimentation and testing goes in there. All of that costs money. All of that takes time. People need to be trained to be able to do that, right? All of the engineers, especially the young ones coming out of colleges and universities. All of these companies need access to those kinds of facilities, right? Either it's like the Glenn Research Center or it's a private organization that has some kind of facility to be able to do that, to test stuff on in an environment that is like space, right? Anti-gravity, or like the moon, being able to take materials from the moon and bring them down here so that scientists here can test that kind of stuff and see what they can build with it, how to work with it, etc. So those are some of like the basic challenges that people in our industry are going to be facing as they explore this emerging market.
Oh, great. Like, how do you think that are you going to overcome these challenges, or at least part of them in the next year in front of investors? What's your like promise maybe for the next year, step by step? Because of course, when you build a startup, you don't have to promise the moon at the beginning, because of course there are challenges, and both founders and both investors knows about it. So, which are your next step in this project to build a sustainable product?
So for us, going out there, presenting like what we've already built, right? Minimum viable product, and then looking for use cases and for companies that are ready to use our technology, get what they need out of it. So that's our focus for the next year. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So you need to launch like a beta version, and of course see the feedback of the different users and see. Okay, and cool. And like
Yeah,
so.
exactly.
And are you going to use, because you mentioned funding as one of the biggest challenge, are you going to use like NFTs also for funding yourself and funding this project? For example, I talked recently with a team of developers that they're building a video game, but they're also developing like artworks for this video game, so that they can sell artworks as NFTs, and with the amount received, they can fund the video game. Are you going to create some similar circle and open yourself to retail investors, or you just think that in this phase it's better to just focus on private investors and institutional investors?
That's actually something we went back and forth on. And I think it's good to look at all avenues. So we haven't ruled anything out, right? We want to work with people who are also passionate about this, people who believe in using this technology for space and people who are just as excited about it as us. And if that comes from, selling NFTs, then awesome. If that comes from traditional investment, that's awesome too, right? It's just about collaboration and finding the right people to work with.
Do you think that we, as humankind, will reach before planet Mars or a total DeFi society here on Earth?
Mm, I think decentralized finance society. I think to reach Mars, we need a decentralized finance society. Like humanity needs to understand sovereignty and true ownership and property rights before we step off of this planet and, go and build societies elsewhere. Like I think humanity has a bunch to learn because otherwise if a bunch of us go to Mars and we just repeat the same mistakes that we've been making on Earth, how is that going to be any different or any better? Um, and decentralization of a lot of different industries, in my opinion, is important for people to really come back from trusting authorities because they say so instead of trusting their own selves and their own hearts and their own moral compass to be able you know to go out there and innovate and create a better world either here or elsewhere.
So this is what you just said. You say to reach Mars, we need a decentralized world, a decentralized finance. That's very an important statement. Like we think that we need those kind of education and those kind of trust and understanding of our world because we don't want to repeat the same mistakes. And you think that decentralization is the key to unlock this?
I think it's one of the keys for sure. I think it's definitely an important factor. I lean more towards sovereignty through spiritual enlightenment than anything, right? And in that case, like if you have one person that everybody looks to and follows without question, and that person makes a mistake, that would have, that would be detrimental to the rest of society, which happens a lot, right? And especially in human history. Like if a king made a terrible decision, a war would start and millions of people would die, right? Or hundreds of thousands at that time. If instead we were able to decentralize those power structures, right? Money, for one, with Bitcoin, um, ownership of property with something like what Ubiquity is doing, right, with blockchain, or like there needs to be some centralization. I think it's more of a spectrum because we do need to have leaders, but we don't need rulers. And I think that's a distinction that humanity hasn't made yet. And that kind of worries me if we go out into other places. Obviously, you need a commander for a space station, but you also need everybody else to be on board and have some kind of control over their specialization.
I absolutely agree. And because you mentioned Bitcoin and you mentioned of course cryptos and you are in this space since a lot. What excites you the most about Bitcoin and crypto in general?
Everything about Bitcoin excites me. Like, I think that Bitcoin is a really powerful tool to help humanity achieve sovereignty, just in general, and achieve freedom and liberty. Like, I think that, and I've thought this for a really long time, which is why I got into Bitcoin in the first place, is that our monetary system as it stands now is extremely oppressive and enslaving. And if we don't control and own our money, then we don't really control our lives. Like money is a fundamental part of society. And a lot of things run on the monetary system that we don't even think about every day. If you, like, there's that saying, follow the money, right? And you'll find the corruption and the greed and the violence because people are always looking for more money. But because Bitcoin completely flips the current system on the side, we're now creating prosperity-based systems instead of debt-based systems. And prosperity-based systems benefit more people. And the more people that benefit financially, the more they will benefit psychologically, the more they will benefit spiritually, the more they will benefit philosophically, right? The way that Bitcoin has shifted people's mentality from looking just to survive on the next day, looking towards their next paycheck, trying to like work in this like machine, right? This economic machine where the people who own all of the money and control all of the money and continuously inflate all of the money and make it less valuable for us, basically stealing our future wealth, stealing the fruits of our labor. If that goes away and we're now in a system that is making people more prosperous, making people think about savings, about long term, about passing their wealth on to future generations, and the stress of that financial oppression goes away, then the possibilities of what humanity can create, innovate, come up with is just absolutely limitless in my mind. And not just like as some kind of hopeful utopian future, but at looking at the facts, the psychological facts of how our economic system, which is really just people exchanging their creativity, their value, their time to benefit each other in some way. If that's cleared out of all of the nasty stuff from the past, like it's like there's no other, like there's no way to go but up. Bitcoin is money. Everything else is an experiment or a token, right? Or an NFT, right? A document, a data point. But Bitcoin is actually money. And so, like, again, right, like you said, not financial advice or anything, but just because one Bitcoin costs $40,000 right now and it continuously fluctuates as it's going up, um, you can buy a Satoshi, you know, you can break up Bitcoin into Satoshis and then you can get those Satoshis for much cheaper, however much you want to put in. And the other tokens, like it's fun to play with them, right? Some people can get really fiat rich off of them if they play their cards right and they sell them at the same time. I always say that there's a huge distinction between owning Bitcoin, investing, in assets in general, right? And trading, right? Trading it's a lifestyle, it's a career, it's a job, it's a profession. So for people who want to play in the market, go for it. Sure. Like I love when people make money. Like that's awesome. I want people to succeed. I want people to get rich. I want people to be able to spend their money on, you know, nonprofits and stuff for their family and be happy and wealthy and prosperous and abundant. Like that's my jam, right? But you have to know what you're getting yourself into and you have to understand the difference between Bitcoin and everything else.
Yes, absolutely. And as we were saying before, NFTs will be a way to have more informations because that's one of the hugest problems anyway. Like when you want to invest in everything, you need to have as many informations as possible about that cryptocurrency, that assets, that companies anyway. So thank you, Anastasia, for coming here today and make me envision some applications of NFTs in space. Really, congrats to you and your team for what you're doing, and wish you all the best for your funding and for your next phase of your startup.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. This was really fun.